Hello, good evening and welcome to Hotedition on 3FM 92.7. This bulletin is live from our studio here at Adisawe Kanda in Accra. I am Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Coming up this evening, the National Peace Council calls for calm and restraint amid rising political tensions following the arrest of opposition figures and threats to destabilize the country. We'll delve into that issue in a moment. Meanwhile, the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine, dismisses accusations of suppressing dissent amid growing political backlash over recent arrests.
There are limits to free speech. And I will say that the President of the Republic, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, is one of the staunchest supporters of free speech.
And later in the bulletin, the first batch of 300 Ghanaian evacuees from South Africa are expected to touch down in Ghana on Thursday aboard a special chartered flight. We'll give you specific details of what the Foreign Affairs Ministry has been saying regarding these repatriation of Ghanaians who are escaping South Africa as a result of the xenophobic attacks. We are live around the world on 3news.com. Your comments and messages are welcome. Just find us on YouTube and on Facebook, where this bulletin is streaming. Before that, though, let's bring you the news summaries with Grace Hamwa Ajiman. Hello, Grace.
Hi, Martin. A military officer has died during a counter-terrorism training exercise in the Upper East region after a blast occurred at Binduri during operations under exercise Storm Shield. The deceased, identified as Private Adote, a physical training instructor with the 6th Infantry Battalion of the Ghana Armed Forces, reportedly died while attempting to rescue fellow officers at the scene of the incident. The Ghana Armed Forces has since concluded the 10-day exercise Storm Shield, which was conducted across Boko, Kusiga and Binduri to enhance troops' preparedness in countering terrorism and violent extremism. To other ones, the Deputy Attorney General, Justice Shamsai, in a Facebook post says the prosecution in the controversial Sky Train case has officially closed its case against former officials of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, GIIF. The case, the Republic vs. Solomon Asamoah and another, involves former GIIF Chief Executive Officer Solomon Asamoah and the fund's former board chairman, who was standing trial over the alleged payment of $2 million to a foreign company without the required board and other approvals. And before I go, regional chairman of the Concerned Drivers Association of Ghana, CDAG, together with other transport unions nationwide, have condemned what they describe as a unilateral hiking of transport fares by some VIP bus operators done without consultation with industry stakeholders. The group has issued a one-week ultimatum to the Minister for Transport, the GPRTU, and the national chairman of CDAG, demanding immediate intervention to stop the unapproved fare increases. That's it, Martin, for the news summaries.
Thank you very much, Grace. Let's settle for the details of our stories now. The National Peace Council has called for calm and restraint amid rising political tensions following the arrest of some political actors over comments alleged to contravene the laws of the country. In a statement issued on Wednesday, the council said it was deeply concerned about the growing tension and warned against inflammatory rhetoric and actions that could threaten national security and stability. The intervention comes in the wake of threats by elements within the opposition New Patriotic Party to mobilize their support base and make the country ungovernable over what they describe as the alleged persecution and political targeting of opposition figures by the governing National Democratic Congress administration. The National Peace Council stressed that respect for the rule of law, due process and constitutional freedoms remain critical to preserving Ghana's democratic credentials. The council also urged security and judicial institutions to act with impartiality, professionalism and transparency in the discharge of their duties. It further appealed to political parties, communicators and commentators both in Ghana and abroad to exercise restraint and avoid unsubstantiated and inflammatory remarks capable of inciting violence. The council said it will, in the coming days, convene a dialogue session with political party leaders as part of efforts to de-escalate tensions and find lasting solutions to the growing political impasse. In a moment, we'll try and get further details from the Peace Council on why they think that these recent actions from either party, especially the New Patriotic Party, is creating tension or political tension in the country. They say it is a rise in political tension. But as a listener to 3FM, for those of you watching us on YouTube and on Facebook, do you think that there really is a rising concern of a political insecurity or tensions in the country? Do let us know in the comment section. I'll be happy to share it with the rest of the world. And let's now go to the phone lines and speak to Madam Susan Ayine, who is a board member of the National Peace Council. Madam, a very good evening to you. Thank you for your time.
Good evening.
From your statement, you described the recent developments, especially the concerns raised by the New Patriotic Party, as raising political tensions, or these developments are rising the political temperature in the country. Is that really the case? Because some also say it clearly is just the regular political banter we know the NDC and the NPP have been engaged in.
Okay, so I believe that the National Peace Council has a little bit more insight, knows a little bit more than others, or the ordinary public may know, because there are some things that happen behind the scenes that are only, they are only privy to. So based upon what they know and what their research has actually, produced, they have come up with this, or we have come up with this, statement. So it's a red flag that we're waving, and this is important that we would make sure that, the temperature, doesn't rise beyond a certain level. And sure, it could be banter, but at the same time, it could be harmful banter, and we don't want to end up in a situation where, things may escalate and result in, violence and bloodshed. So we have come up with this statement to ensure that, tempers are calm, and the rhetoric is also, kind of like toned down a bit, just to ensure that we goes into a space
right
where war has cared. If you delve deeper,
and
the things that bring them to that point, very trivial things which may have looked. It's very important that before things get out of hand, you can speak to it.
Right. Kindly reposition yourself for us. Parts of your submission we lost, especially the latter part. But I get the point that you may be privy to some other information that the masses may not be aware of, for which reason you're advising that tempers be calm so that we can use the appropriate means to address these concerns. But the other side of the argument is that the New Patriotic Party is accusing the government of what the government, when they were in opposition, were also accusing the then NPP of. So it just comes to the same point that it looks as though every now and then, whoever is in power or in opposition, they try to allegedly use state institutions to, crack down on opposing views or dissent. Is that a problem that both parties can be squarely blamed for? And for that reason, we need both parties to find a solution to it.
Yes, you are very right. I mean, the observations are certainly, and the National Peace Council has been engaging, with political parties, particularly the two political parties, and basically on some of these issues, ensuring that they sign, MOUs. And so some of these things have been visited. So if it needs for the National Peace Council to engage once again with both political parties, I think, that will be something that, the council can over and ensure that it can reach out to them. And I believe that it should, because it should also follow, with so that we can ensure that, both parties, can be reined in and peace, can prevail.
There is the part of your statement which touched on the fact that the security services and the judiciary also have a pivotal role to play in ensuring that our democracy is sustained and does not degenerate into, what we all do not want to hear or see. What role really do they or can they play in this, as you've mentioned?
Oh, certainly for the judiciary, if, some of these cases may come to their attention, and you would have to actually use the law to actually, ensure that things don't go out of hand. So basically, it's just appealing to the judiciary to also make sure that, whatever judgments are made are fair and not, there's nobody feels, any form of injustice, has been meted out, to them. Security agencies also have a role to play. We've been in this country, we have seen how, both sides have accused security agencies of, being used against each other. And I think that, it's high time that, we behave in a professional manner and ensure that we stick to, what statutes and ensure that nobody is above the law. Everybody is equal before the law. So everybody, has fair treatment and doesn't feel, aggrieved. And I know that in some cases, or in a lot of cases, we have seen the security personnel, the police actually engaging with, political actors to ensure that, things don't, go out of hand.
Right, Madam, so beyond the political actors or the politics of this conversation lies the moral argument as well, where the concern is that it looks as though some people are on the back of the fact that we are allowing freedom of speech, are using this quote-unquote freedom of speech to speak vile of people in political position or people who are supposed to be in neutral positions like the judges or people at the judiciary, I should say. So there have been very negative commentary or sometimes very painful insults, the words being used by some of these political actors. And the other side of the argument is that people have the freedom to speak. And when you speak, nobody comes up to either pick you up or invite you for investigation. However, it is those who degenerate such public commentary into the spheres of, insults that the system is trying to deal with. What is your position on this?
Well, I believe that we have actually, pointed out that this has been a alarming development with where you find that there's a lot of, hate speech, or maybe hate speech may be too strong a word, but a lot of maybe offensive, words that are used, and that, the feelings of people. Sometimes we even step beyond and libel others. But the issue, we need to have, a common and a uniform way of addressing issues. And the language that we use must be temperate. And I know that even for the media, the media has, come up with their own requirements needed. And so it doesn't only, behove on security agents. When such persons, enter into the studio and they are engaged, in public discourse, it is the responsibility of the media station or the host or the hostess to ensure that, they don't, overstep, their bounds. If these people have to sign even some form of agreement before they enter into the studio to speak, I think that should be that, they should, make sure that they speak within or use temperate language and don't go beyond, they don't overstep their boundaries, and that if they do, they can be, half out of the studio. I think that should be it. And we as well must make sure that, as politicians, political actors, civil society, organizations must make sure that the language we use does not, incite a lot of, rancor. So it's very, very important that we do this. But maybe we may have to go a step beyond and begin to put, certain, plans and agendas in place to make sure that people are committed to ensuring that when they come here, when they speak, in public spaces, they don't go beyond, certain, of course, boundaries. And of course, we know we have the freedom. If we do have that, that's a fundamental human right. But when we talk about rights, responsibilities, so you have a right to speak. You are entitled to speak, but you have a responsibility as well as a political actor, as a civil society person, as a media person, to ensure that you behave in a responsible manner that will not ensure that we get into that space where we have to fight. If you look at the Rwandan situation, it took a simple statement on the media to really get them into that space where we all read and saw and heard about the genocide. So it's very, very important that temperate language is used at all times.
Madam, we are grateful for your time. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Right, and that is Madam Susan Ayite, a board member of the National Peace Council, and they have also given indications that in the coming days they will convene a dialogue session with the political leaders of both parties to find ways of de-escalating the rising tensions. Still on the same subject matter, though, the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Dr. Dominic Ayine, says he will treat with contempt threats by the opposition New Patriotic Party to make the country ungovernable over alleged intimidation of its members, insisting that the party is exaggerating concerns surrounding free speech and political tolerance. His remarks come a day after the New Patriotic Party minority petitioned the diplomatic community, calling on the international community to reaffirm the importance of freedom of expression, judicial independence, and political tolerance in Ghana's democratic dispensation. Responding to the concerns, Dr. Ayine maintained that while freedom of speech is guaranteed under Ghana's democratic framework, it works with limitations and responsibilities.
I think that the minority is exaggerating a lot with respect to the question of gagging of free speech. All right, there are limits. If you look at the Constitution, Chapter 5 of the Constitution deals with the fundamental human rights and freedoms. Look at Article 21, which guarantees the fundamental, a right to free speech, to the right to demonstrate, and then the general freedoms of Ghanaians. But there are limits, all right? You can limit free speech if, for instance, it is something that, one that can undermine public order, all right, or public morals, okay? And for instance, for law enforcement reasons. So if someone, for instance, is inciting hatred in our society, okay, we do not expect that the minority will say that we should sit down idle as a government and allow that person to go on, because so there are limits to free speech. And I will say that the President of the Republic, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, is one of the staunchest supporters of free speech, because he himself, is a communicator he's a communication specialist. I don't want to say he was a journalist, all right, but he was into communication, and so he understands the importance of free speech in a democratic society. As Attorney General, I do understand the importance of free speech in a democratic society, and I would be the last person
to reintroduce the criminal libel law, and that if this continues, they would arm themselves and make the country ungovernable.
Well, as for the threat of arming themselves and making the country ungovernable, I think I will, treat it with the contempt it deserves, okay? But as far as this government is concerned, I want to reiterate that we will respect the rights and freedoms of every Ghanaian.
Right, so that is Dr. Dominic Ayine, who is Ghana's Attorney General and Minister for Justice. Let's go to the phone lines now. Haruna Mohammed is Deputy General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party. He's joined us for a quick chat on this. Mr. Mohammed, thank you for your time. The not just the Attorney General, but we've interacted with a number of communicators on the other side of the political divide, and they are of the opinion that there really is nothing new in these recent developments, and that when people are speaking out of context and saying things that threaten the life of individuals, people in power, people in holding public positions, they need to be dealt with according to law. And that position has been held by both NDC and MPP, depending on who is in power. So why is the NPP crying foul as though they were the only group of people who are being threatened or being dealt with according to law?
I would like to say good evening to your Sheriff listeners and those who are following you over the social media handles. You agree with me that the NDC, nobody within the NDC has been treated the way the MPP people have been treated. So it's not about why the MPP is complaining because the law is being applied to all factions. That is not accurate. When this country, the same Attorney General who just spoke, and I'm speaking, referred the national organizer of the NDC to Yoko for sanctioning. Yoko never went and arrested that particular person, the national organizer, in the manner that they arrested Hanan and the wife. They did not arrest him like the way they went and arrested Wuntumi. Several examples are there to show. So if we tell you that these people are persecuting us, they are being selective in the application of the law, then you should be agreeing with us. Again, they are talking about if somebody makes a statement that is put somebody's life in danger. I'll give you an example. David Asando, he wrote that Dumso is back. If Dumso is back, is it putting somebody's life in danger? The statement, Dumso is back. And the person who brought Dumso, he and that person, who is more dangerous? Because I fear heat. We put the light off. I am in the heat. You have put my life in danger. Somebody is reminding you that you are putting our lives in danger by saying that Dumso has come back. Then you have the audacity to go and arrest the person with armed policemen, and we cannot even find his whereabouts until we have made a force, put the pressure on them to get to know where David Asando is. Why in this country? Baba Mandu, what statement did he make? He made a public statement which has nothing to do with national security, which has nothing to endanger somebody's life. He was picked all the way from Sunyani in the car up to Accra. These are the kind of things that we are talking about. You pick somebody, Abronya one. What did Abronya say? He was picked. They went to court. What did the judge say? The judge made reference to the fact that not everybody is equal before the law, which is contrary to the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. The Constitution says that everybody, including the president, is equal before the law. Then a judge makes a statement that in the animal farm, we are not all equal, meaning not everybody is equal before the law. And this is something that is against the Constitution. Again, the judge made a reference to a dictator. Everybody knows that dictator. Idi Amin. What reference? What was the judge thinking about and made the issue of Idi Amin a dictator? Was he referring to us that, or reminding us, or insinuating that the president of the republic is a dictator? What, of course, will warrant the judge to use that, or he was dictated to deal with Abonye? These are the matters that we must concern ourselves with, and we must be very careful as a nation the way we apply it.
Right.
So I don't think that these are the right comparisons. We should be very clear in our mind that the NDC is selective, the NDC is being vindictive, the NDC is being persecuting opposition and making sure that they intimidate us not to speak, and by doing so, they arrest and detain people, use bail conditions as basis to keep people in the cells.
And Haruna, so let's also, one of the key issues that I have tried to get an answer to anytime I'm speaking to key political actors like yourself is that are we saying that there really is no justification at all for these individuals that have been picked up or are assisting with investigations? And case in point, you mentioned Abronye. For him, we have all seen or heard the audio and video of how he rained insults on a judge, for which reason, or part of the reasons why he is being kept for further investigations. As an individual, put your political hat aside. As an individual, what do you make of the fact that political voices that younger people listen to, political voices that, mold our public discourse, sometimes descend into these areas where we all seem to disagree with? How does this come to you?
You know, the country is governed by laws, right? The country is governed by laws. I hope you agree with me.
Yes, I do.
There is nowhere in the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana or any enacted law or any additional law that bans insults or criticism. If an insult is so sensitive, it provides a remedy in the Constitution. And that is why lawyers will tell you that where there is civil remedy, the application of criminal proceedings becomes a political choice. What Abronye says, if you think that Abronye has insulted you and you want remedy, is it criminal trial or civil trial? Do you go for defamation or you consider it as a misdemeanor? So the due processes and the right approach in dealing with the matter, rather than a political approach in criminalizing the matter, that is what teaches us the lesson. And that is where you begin to get the pattern of the events. And you begin to make comment and question the rationale of the applications of the law.
Right. So let's make progress, and that will be my final question. The National Peace Council is advising that we bring down the political temperature in the country. They even would want to later dialogue with both parties to at least see how best we can still go ahead, express ourselves because of freedom of speech and expression, but we need to do it within the remit of the law. Is that something that you agree with, that not just MPP but NDC themselves need to come to the table so there is a consensus that we do not need to go down this route, so that if anybody after such an agreement falls foul of the law, we do not come and say that they are being persecuted?
The Peace Council should first of all counsel the government. The government must first of all be counseled and be reminded of the due process and personal liberties of individuals. If the Peace Council is able to do that first, then they can now begin to call the political parties to sit around the table. If they are unable to do that, then they should give themselves the counseling of the government as a project to deal with it. When they are able to deal with all the processes in terms of project management, then the Peace Council can now come to political parties. In fact, the Peace Council knows very well that this particular discussion is between us, the opposition party, and the NDC government. It is the government that is perpetuating this, what we are talking about. There is nowhere in the law or in the process that somebody should be detained until a matter is completed.
Yeah, but you see, Haruna, let me come in here. You see, this is where it becomes difficult to find an amicable solution to some of these issues. How is it the government, how is it President John Dramani Mahama and his government, when there is a police officer who has, based on the powers they have as police officers, gone on to arrest someone, there is a judge or the judiciary also independent doing their work, how do we blame the government? And this same question I'll put to the NDC. Why do we blame governments instead of institutions that have legal backing to do their work?
3 years ago or 2 years ago, who was the IGP? Today, who is the IGP? If not for this government, 2 years ago, who was the Chief Justice? Who is the Chief Justice today? Who was the Minister for Defense? Who was the Minister for Interior? Who was the National Security Coordinator? Who is the policeman reporting to? Who appointed the Chief Justice? In the circumstances that we find ourselves, how Tukuno was removed.
So you believe it is a government problem?
Yes, because the NDC is vindictive.
Right.
That is why they are abusing the process. So the Peace Council should concentrate on the NDC if they were not doing what they are doing currently, and they try as much as possible to follow the due process. We will not complain. Nobody is afraid of accountability. But you must use the law according to the law.
Okay.
Not according to the whims and caprices of your party and your government.
Okay. Haruna, thank you. And certainly it's still an unfolding issue, so we'll definitely be engaging you in the coming days. Thank you for speaking to us, Haruna.
All right. So tell the Peace Council, we have heard them, but they should go and cancel the government first. If they are able to deal with the government, then they can invite us to discuss and go on a round table.
Very well. Thank you. Haruna Mohammed is Deputy General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party. We also do have on the line Mahdi Jibril, Director of Elections of the National Democratic Congress. Mahdi, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Bernard, you're welcome.
Right. So this is Martin. But what would your response be to the fact that the NPP believes that the government, as they put it, is using state institutions to crack down on free speech?
Martin, let me say good evening to your listeners. And to say that I think until citizens of this country rise against politicians in this country, will continue to abuse. Politicians will always continue abusing the system every time. And I think that our colleagues MPP should know that we have come to an age that we say we are resetting Ghana politically and economically. Things that we have all done before, we continue doing it as if once you do this thing, once you're in opposition, you continue doing this thing, it doesn't play again. For me, it's unfortunate seeing MPP doing this. But I don't blame them because we are in the season of their internal elections. So if you watch, those who speak much of this tension are those going into elections again. Check. All those who are speaking about tension in this country, about fighting this country, are all going for elections in the MPP internal elections. So they are using this stage to campaign for their position. Other than that, if it was to be last year, they would have been doing what they are doing today. So it's just unnecessary tension they are creating for this country. For me, I don't see that if there's anything that MPP should talk about it.
Right.
It is not, I don't think anything MPP must talk about it. But it's for us as a citizen of this country to start cautioning politicians not to waste all of us our time. That as the political parties always feel that there's a different law for politicians and different law for citizens of this country. If you go to the police stations today across this country, people who have insulted or attacked people physically or directly insult, they are being reminded in police stations today. Nobody is talking about them. But let's send any politician to misbehave. Then you see people coming forward to say, it's a politician, leave him. I see politicians have different laws in this country. I see politicians have different laws in this country.
Right, but Mahdi, you would also agree with me that it doesn't negate the fact that people have been arrested or invited because of public commentary or things they have said. It doesn't, your argument that, the MPP people are seeking political office, that is why they are campaigning more or less using these issues to be relevant in the media, etc. It doesn't change the fact that people who have spoken or written on social media have been invited or arrested and currently in detention because of public commentary. You would not agree with that? You would not disagree with that, would you?
Okay, so let me ask. Is it wrong for a police officer to invite everybody for commenting on the social media? Is it wrong?
No, you tell me. Let's have the conversation.
No, is it wrong? Under the MPP, I don't see, because I don't want to go. Under the MPP, a gentleman went to Akwelebu when First Lady was there presenting a program. When he raised a placard that we should open the University of Ghana hospital, didn't they arrest him? This is the same government we are talking about arrested that guy because he's calling for something for this country. He only brought a placard and said, why not open the Kolebu hospital? He was arrested under the watch of the same people we are talking today.
Right.
So at that time, when the IGP, the police invited that person, that was right.
Okay. So I get the point that you are more or less pushing the argument that there is an issue of equalization here.
There's nothing equalization. You think that as a politician, we are being pampered too much in this country.
Including the NDC.
Pampered politicians.
Right.
It seems that the laws are different from, and I think this should be a wall. You see, check all those people who have been invited and check whether any of them made a statement on a political show of any TV station or radio station that they've invited. You say no. It is when this individual decided to go and buy their own mic, put cameras on them in their house, and then say what they want. Because they think that there's a freedom of speech, they will do anything. Check all the people that they've invited, whether they came to a program on TV or radio, that they are defending their party's policies, that somebody invited them. If that is so, then that's become attacking the freedom of speech. But if somebody goes to misbehave in his house, thinking that because I'm in my house, I can do anything, disturb the peace of this country, they will say we shall allow him to do that.
Okay. So let's make progress, Jibril. So clearly, the NPP, when they were in power, undertook similar issues, for which reason you say that it is not out of the blue. Again, they are also saying that now that they are in opposition, you are venting the same, anger on them. Clearly, from what you have said, politicians in general, from either party and beyond, need to work or speak within the remit of the law. So the Peace Council, for instance, is advising or suggesting that they want to engage you, the key political actors in the country, so we are able to come to a consensus or have some agreement. Is that something the NDC agrees to and would want to, work with the Peace Council on?
I think that when I saw the statement, it was unfortunate. I think the Peace Council should have that confidence to speak to people and say that what we are doing is wrong. Is NDC and MPP fighting in this country? Is NDC and MPP fighting? We meet on radio programs, we discuss issues, heated arguments. Have you ever fought on any program? But what is happening today, that MPP, some of their members, in fact, the MPP members have even issues abroad here when they are doing the internal election with the same kind of statement. But because of their party, that nobody was able to report him to the police. What I'm talking about here is that people who think outside those political activities. That's why I'm worried that this Peace Council today, by not going to any analysis to say that what they know behind the scenes, that is why they made this statement. NDC have never said any word and against MPP on these issues.
Okay.
It is a behavior of Abronia that has brought him today.
Okay. Jibril, thank you for joining us and speaking on this subject. Thank you for your time as always.
You're welcome.
And that is the Director of Elections for the National Democratic Congress, Jibril, Mahdi Jibril. There clearly the opinions being shared are quite different. So do let us know what you also make of this particular development, which is the fact that state institutions mandated with authority by the law, the Constitution, to undertake their own job of if someone is doing something wrong, arrest the person or at least invite the person so they go through the legal process. If politicians or political actors wade into some of these things and make it look like it is political witch hunting or political vendetta, it whittles down the essence of why these state institutions are in place in the first place and why they are supposed to do the work the way they probably are doing it. And if yes, there are some political undertones where in some instances proof has been brought to bear, these institutions also need to look at themselves in the mirror, because it will be wrong to use state institutions to bully your opponent, be it in power or in opposition, because times do change and positions will likely change. So a word to the wise, they say, is enough. Let's stay on this subject matter, but this time around, let's look at what exactly is happening to the likes of Abronya, who is one of the key actors in as to why we are having this conversation. The Accra High Court has adjourned hearing of a bail application filed by the New Patriotic Party's Bono Regional Chairman Kwame Bafo, popularly known as Abronya, to Thursday, May 21, after prosecutors requested more time to file their response. Lawyers for Abronya, led by former Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame, appeared in court seeking bail after the Accra Circuit Court denied the application. Abronya has been charged with offensive conduct conducive of the breach of peace and publication of false news. Prosecutors accuse him of making derogatory remarks about a judge and attempting to incite public dissatisfaction or disaffection against the judiciary. His continued detention has triggered accusations from the minority of a growing culture of silence under the NDC government. Let's listen to the General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, Justin Frimpong Kodria, who addressed reporters at the court earlier today.
Well, as you are aware, our party, led by the Council for our chairman, Abronya, filed for bail application, which the Attorney General was duly served, and today was fixed for the hearing of the bail application. Indeed, we knew and we were told that per the electronic allocation, the case was to be heard at the Criminal Court 2. So this morning, we went to the Criminal Court 2. After some few minutes, our lawyer, Kojo Pankoma, told us that, surprisingly, the case has been moved from where officially it was allocated to a different court, to our dismay. And indeed, as at Friday, we are aware that the docket was sent to the Criminal Court 2. So as to why the case was moved to a different court is something that is mind-boggling. And we are aware it's part of the gymnastics by the system to frustrate the bail application. But be as is made, the registrar, Somutu, decided to move the case to a different court with the excuse that it was an error. How can electronic allocation of a case be an error? And in correcting it, the registrar manually decided to move it to a different court. But however, guided by the principle of due process, our lawyer and the team moved to the new court, which is the General Jurisdiction Court 2, Court 3. And our application was moved. But however, the Attorney General's office opposed to the application. In fact, they rather said that they wanted the case to be adjourned so that they can study the procedure to be in the position to advise.
And you heard the voice of Justin Kodria Frimpong, who is the General Secretary of the opposition New Patriotic Party there. So your thoughts are also very welcome. Do share them with us. We'll be happy to let the world know what you make of this decision. This is 3FM 92.7. Stay with us. When we return, we'll be updating you on the 300 Ghanaians living in South Africa who are expected to arrive in the country from Thursday, which is tomorrow, the 21st of May. What specific packages have been put together for them by government? Stay with us. Details of all of that and more in a jiffy. Still listening to 3FM 92.7. This is Hotedition. Some of your comments have come in. This one from Aaron Babako, who says, good evening to you. In Ghana, it is critical that opposition parties transition away from merely attributing systemic failures to the incumbent administration. Constructive oversight requires moving beyond partisan critique toward proposing concrete, actionable frameworks designed to strengthen the nation's socio-economic architecture. Political actors must pivot from zero-sum rhetorical strategies to data-driven, solution-oriented governance. Thank you very much. We also have this from Pedro Pedroa, who says that she's watching us from Indianapolis, Kumasi, Tanoso. So do also let us know what you make of these big stories we are covering for you this evening, and we'll be happy to share your thoughts with the rest of the world. The first batch of 300 Ghanaians in South Africa is expected to arrive in Ghana on Thursday, the 21st of May, aboard a special chartered flight. The government announced a support package for Ghanaians being evacuated from South Africa following ongoing xenophobic attacks targeting foreign nationals. In a notice issued on Wednesday morning, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in a notice issued on Wednesday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that affected Ghanaians will receive a welcome home financial package, transportation support, and a reintegration allowance to help them rebuild their lives upon return. The ministry also says free psychosocial support will be provided for evacuees dealing with trauma from the attacks. Government further disclosed that returnees will be enrolled into a special database to connect them with job opportunities and startup support programs. If you've been following the developments there, what do you make of this intervention by government? The fact that they have given the opportunity to those who want to come back home, to run away from the xenophobic attacks, which many of you must have seen on social media. They are expected to come in tomorrow, or the first batch will land tomorrow. We'll be bringing you updates on that particular development. But now let's go to the phone lines and speak to international relations analyst Dr. Yao Gebe. Doc, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity.
It looks as though government has stepped up, its efforts to ensure that the safety of Ghanaians remains paramount, to the extent that they've chartered a flight and are bringing home compatriots who are under attack in South Africa. What generally does this mean about our diplomatic efforts?
Thank you. It is only due to extenuating circumstances that anybody would like to leave his own or her own home or country to go and reside in another country. And it is clear that either for job opportunities, lack of opportunity to, embark or engage in, jobs or work, that might probably, or for educational purposes, then you leave your own country. In this case, Ghanaians, fellow Ghanaians who find themselves in the Republic of South Africa, continually, on annual basis, get this xenophobic attacks from fellow Africans. And this time around, it seems to be on the increase. So I am so, full of praise for the Minister of Foreign Affairs to have stepped in to take this particular line of intervention to help out compatriots who unfortunately have to be, rescued and repatriated back to Ghana. The government is doing well, and I listen to the interventions or the packages that have been arranged by the government, and I think it is well placed.
We've also heard from the South African authorities, from the president to the foreign affairs minister and some other key voices in South Africa, saying that they also condemn the xenophobic attacks on fellow Africans. With this step that Ghana is taking, what does that tell you about our current diplomatic relationship with South Africa?
Definitely, our diplomatic relations with South Africa is marred, seriously damaged by what is going on. Because this is not the first time. It has been recurring. And so far, it appears that the government of South Africa has not put into place structural reforms, interventions that can actually bring South African people, the population, to appreciate or get the realization that these are fellow Africans, people whose in the past, historically speaking, governments, African leaders helped in the liberation of that particular nation. And today, when neighbors decide to go to South Africa and make a living, and all that they get in return is killings, destructions, and what have you. Definitely, our government will not lie low and accept this to continue. And I don't know how the South African government is going to repair this unhealthy relation that is currently taking place between our country and South Africa. I continue to make the point that what is happening right now in terms of the xenophobia, it is a symptom of a deeper issue problem. It has to do with the decadent economy of South Africa. South Africa on the surface appears to be stable, but the ownership of the productive means of living is completely in the hands of the South African whites. They own 70% of the economy. The productive sectors of the economy are completely in their hands. Africans only own 13%. And that is mostly those who have been, given jobs in the public sector. The private sector is completely dominated by the white population. Secondly, the other groups, like the colored, they take the rest 17%. So if these things are going on in an economy and the people turn their eyes on outsiders, it means that there is complete lack of appreciation of what is going on. And these problems have to be resolved by the South African government. If you recall, even to the extent that a whole political party was formed, and it is named Economic Fighters Party. That says a whole lot about what is going on in that country. So, let's continue doing what we can for our compatriots. We will bring them back home, and I hope that they will learn from all this, and let's help them to settle down
Okay.
And if the government's interventions can help them, and then they can get gainful employment or start their own businesses, it will be in their own interest.
The right direction. All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening, Dr. Yaugebe.
It's my pleasure.
He is an international relations analyst there, and clearly for those of you who also feel strongly about this subject, send us a message. We'll be happy to let the world know about it. And it's again very condemnable, these reports we are getting about xenophobic attacks and demonstrations and rallies only to look out for fellow blacks who are not South African and then attack them, force them to close their shops and businesses. It is very untoward. In the coming weeks, we know that the Africa Union will be holding a meeting, a summit for that matter, and this will be definitely one of the key talking points. We would update you on it in subsequent bulletins. And before we swing out, let's bring you some other stories. Now, the Ministry of Transport says investigations are ongoing into the alleged misuse of 40 million Ghana cedis that was released in 2024 for the rehabilitation of the Accra, Achimota and Sawam rail line. Transport Minister Joseph Bukar-Enikpe said that the ministry became aware of the issue through the chief executive of the Railway Development Authority and has since initiated steps to uncover what happened to the funds. Speaking to journalists, the minister said that the matter is currently under investigation and assured that the findings will be made public once the process is completed.
This has come to my notice through the chief executive of the Railway Development Authority, and those were issues that happened in 2024, and we have forwarded them. They are being investigated, and then the report will soon come out for us to know the truth about who embezzled what or what happened. They actually raised these issues that in 2024 an amount of 40 million cedis was released for the rehabilitation of the Accra, Achimota, Nsawon rail line, but it wasn't done. And it is a matter of investigation. I wouldn't want to go deep into it. It's already something that the ministry is aware, and we have taken steps to investigate. They are only recalling or making a call for us to make public what the investigations are, but I cannot make it public when it is not yet done. And so we are hoping that when the investigations are concluded, we will know the truth about the matter.
Joseph Bukar-Enikpe is the minister in charge of transport in Ghana, and also meanwhile the minister has disclosed that the Ministry of Finance has released the final tranche of funds for the payment of outstanding salaries owed to railway workers across the country. He says processes are currently underway to clear 6 months of salary arrears owed to the affected railway workers, assuring them that government remains committed to resolving the situation.
This has come.
Again, we are calling for investigation and transparency at the Ministry of Transport. We raise serious concern and demand full investigation and public accountability on the following: allegation that companies including Microolu, that GMC, CK Mining, Abusco Enterprise and others paying Microolu paying 15 million, CK Man paying 5.5, Abusco paying 6 million Ghana cedi, and other company paying 7.5 Ghana cedi.
And he had the thoughts of one of the railway workers who has been giving us an update on what suspicions they also have, for which reason they are hoping that the ministry will investigate and get to the bottom of it. And on the back of that, we bring the bulletin to an end. Thank you so much for listening. And those of you who watched us on Facebook and on YouTube, we are grateful and we thank you for your company. That's it. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Have a pleasant evening.